have with us on via Skype right now Vince Redmond, who's a
Yes.
licensed marriage and family therapist. And you guys, if you watched the last hour, boy, Vince, Dr. Doreen Grampuchet said some really nice things about you.
No.
Isn't that nice to hear that
That's
nice
nice.
things were said about you behind your back? That's always the best thing to hear, right?
Yes.
And she did. She said some wonderful things about how knowledgeable you are about ABA, in addition to being a licensed marriage and family therapist, which is always the thing that I like to remind all of you watching, is that Vince spent many, many, many years working in the field of ABA. So he is that wonderful, wonderful blend of understanding what ABA is, but also being able to help and support a whole family through a whole host of different things. So we appreciate you, Vince, for giving us some time here once a month.
Always. It's anytime.
Well, and Nancy and I wanted to talk a little bit today about transitioning. And one of the first questions you had was transitioning from what to what. But honestly, that's part of the question for the families, right? That Nancy and I both see with teenagers a whole different side of autism now, right?
Right.
It's very eye-opening. And that there is this thing that happens once your kids get to be 13, do you think is about the age where you start to see that, things are going to be different?
Yes.
And and that there is a transition coming, and that there are lots of different things to transition to from this time period that you've had, but it can be a very scary thing in knowing what to do and how to. So
very scary.
I think
for the parent, it can be completely overwhelming.
Exactly, and so I'd love it, Vince, if you could talk to us a little bit about how the parents can deal with anxiety. Plus, which if you have any knowledge or hope about the transition itself, but it's about dealing with the emotions of all of it, I think, is the first step, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we think about it, it's a paradigm shift, because early intervention and when the kids are younger, we're taught try to keep things as constant and consistent as possible, right? So, and you also look at elementary school, it's very regimented and it's very much the same routine for most of their school, right? They have school, they have recess, they have school, they have lunch, they have a little bit more school, they go home, have therapy, and so forth, right? So it's very regimented, but it's also very consistent and it's very predictable for our kids. So when they go, yes, there's a little bit of anxiety going from first grade to second grade to third grade, new teachers, new peers, but after a couple weeks, everything pretty much falls under the same structure. Now you hit middle school and things change, right? Now you have to go class to class. There's a constant change. Every class has new teachers, new peers, new curriculum, new sets of rules. You know, some have hall passes, some don't let you go to the bathroom, some, make you have to raise your hand to get a pencil and what have you. So it does become very concerning for our kids and very anxiety producing. And again, I'll get back to the family in a sec, but because everything that they're used to over the last 4, 5, 6 years now changes. Now that creates a lot of anxiety in the parents as well, because as parents, we too have been taught consistency, keep the structure the same, keep the schedule the same. So we get anxious knowing that we can't do that. We can't keep it the same. We can't keep it the way that it used to be that's worked well. So we have to be able to think about, okay, how can we alleviate our anxieties by also alleviating the child's anxieties before they actually get into the new, either be school or it be, social situation where those transitions are going to occur. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So how can the parent relieve their anxiety about it? What are some tips you have for that?
A couple things. The first thing is that the parent, I would very much encourage the parent to get involved in the school. So know the school, know the layout, know the classrooms, know where things are, because then they can help map it out for their child. They can go to the school during an off day and show them this is where the cafeteria is, this is where the bookstore is, this is where the library is, this is where your class is going to be, and kind of follow this, not only the schedule, but also where some of the other amenities are going to be, like the cafeteria. So that they can rehearse it, they can practice it, they can actually map it out a couple times, so that when the child goes to this new school, they actually have a map of, you kind of think of it like a treasure map. They have a map to follow to be able to get to their treasures, which would be first period, second period, and so forth. But what it does also, it alleviates the anxiety of the parent because the parent is now well informed of where everything is in the school. They can answer questions for their children if they come home and they ask, or if they come home and they're stressed. They can talk about maybe different routes to a class, or maybe how to get to the library in time, right? A lot of the schools have 4 minutes, maybe 7 minutes to get from point A to point B. And that can be very, very anxiety producing for our kids if they have to go to their lockers and change books and stuff like that. So you're able to come up with some resolutions to this prior to them actually being involved.
Right. Okay. That's a good point.
And-
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Shannon.
Well, I was just going to say, I had a moment last week where I realized that I am struggling a little bit as a woman and as a mom, that my role changed and I didn't keep up with it. And now I'm having to run to keep up. I've noticed at school that it's so different, that they're not as welcoming of parents
Right.
in the high school situation. They really want you to drop off. There are ways that you can get involved. It takes a little bit longer, but I'm also noticing that the other kids, and I think honestly part of it is that I've crested an age where people look at me different.
Uh-huh.
When I was younger, I was, a cool mom.
Right.
The kids don't want to have anything to do with me anymore. I'm just a senior citizen to them. And my kid doesn't want to have anything to do with me anymore.
Right.
And it really, it kind of shook me that I was like, my role has changed. And I know that a lot of people that I know are going through the same thing with kids this age. It's all different because in some cases our kids are holding on, in other cases they're walking away, and in some case, but it's I'm noticing that I have to deal with this. That I can't just stick my head in the sand. The rules all changed. The game, so to speak, all changed, and that I'm not as much of a central player anymore.
Right.
And then I have emotions about that, but I'm not really sure what to do with it, Vince.
Yeah, I feel the same way because well, what happened when Wyatt first started high school, I was walking in every morning with him to his home period
Yeah.
to talk to his case manager and just kind of socialize. And at a certain point, one of the moms said, that's not cool to do anymore.
Yeah.
You
get
shouldn't do
booted
that.
out.
And now he doesn't want me to walk him in.
There you go. There you go. And so, I don't know, you got anything in your magic bag there, Vince, to help us to we need to flow with the changes. There's that line in The Landslide about, can I handle the seasons of my life?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I'm right there.
Right. When you bring up a transition that, again, it's a transition for you guys, and for parents, not just you two, but obviously for parents, it's not as much of a transition for the kids. Really what this is an exclamation of is that you did it right, right? We want the kids, ultimately the ultimate goal is for them to be more independent, is for them to want to be in the class without supports or without as many supports, to be in the class without the security of having a parent around. That means we've done it right. That means you guys have done it right, because that's the ultimate goal. Now, as a parent, it rips our heart apart, when your child doesn't need you anymore or doesn't want to be with you anymore, but it's for the right reason, right? There's no anger, there's no negativity. This is for the right reason. They want to be with their peers, they want to be in class, they want to be around the other kids or the other peers. That's good. This is a sign of success. It's not only a sign of success for the kids, but it's a sign of success for the parents as well.
Right. Okay.
And
Very good.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
I do, that it is a sign of success, but it's hard.
It is hard.
It's really, really hard. And I see that it's going to continue to change that way. And I said actually to Bonnie Yates, because she happened to call me right in the moment that I was having this epiphany.
Right.
And I said to her, I said, I think I'm having an identity crisis.
Right.
Because if I'm not Jen's, I'm sorry.
I'm going to cut you off there. You always will be. You guys are going to, us as parents are always going to be, we might not be as much in the foreground, but we're always going to be propelling the ship in the background, right? let him, we're letting the kids shine, we're letting the kids have their moment, but we also know their deficits, we also know their skill needs, and we also know the areas in which they're going to need support. So always remember that we're always going to be needed, however it may be, but you're going to be propelling the ship in the background. It's just now you're going to be in the bridge instead of out on the bow.
Yeah.
These are just steps towards what eventually is the empty nest, I guess, which is terrifying.
It is terrifying, and it's and Nancy and I have talked a lot about the fact that it's different for everybody, but it's terrifying to think of your child going out into the world.
Right.
Right. It's also terrifying for the kids that aren't going to go as far out into the world.
I mean, you and I have very different situations. I'm coming to terms with the fact that my child probably is not going to go on to college, and I'm going to have to see where he is going to end up. And I'm starting to think about that now.
And that's got to be, overwhelming. I'm starting to deal with the reality that my kid not only is going to go to college, but doesn't want to live at home to go to college.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, Vince, I didn't plan on that. I overshot the bow.
Be careful what we wish for, right?
Right. I mean, I just have always said, he's going to go to college. He's going to go to college. He's just not going to live in the dorms.
Right.
And I've been told in no uncertain terms that he's going to live in the dorms.
Right.
And I've taught college. I wouldn't want a neurotypical kid to live in the dorms. I'm sorry.
I not. I mean, and again, these are the problems. I mean, if we really think about it, these are the problems we want to have.
Yes. No,
Right?
it's absolutely true.
These are the same things I go through. These are the same things that other parents go through when they have the child go to college, right? Should they live in the dorm? Should they live on campus? Should they not? Should they move away? Should they not? Should they apply to local schools, away schools? Those are always going to be difficult, but in a different way, right? Difficult decisions, difficult process for families, but it's also a good one. Because this is exactly where we want Wyatt and Jem and all the other kids that are experiencing this, all the other families experiencing this. This is where we want them to be, because this means that they're going to go on with their education. They're going to meet new people. They're going to be able to have more experiences, and they're going to be able to do a lot more independently than maybe we thought they would at the beginning.
And I still keep saying that to Nancy too. I think that there is a college program that Wyatt can go to and have an amazing experience.
I'm hoping that is true. I'm hoping that is true.
Yes, and I'm already looking and scouting out different programs.
Right. I know you're in my corner for that.
Well, of course, because I think that Wyatt is a brilliant painter.
Right,
and
he is.
That a typical college experience would, be something that would hold him back.
Uh-huh.
But there are college experiences where he could go and paint and be the next great American painter,
right.
I think.
Right.
Sure.
I have plans for Wyatt. I have plans.
Well, and that's the thing, is everybody's plan is different. It doesn't need to be, Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard or any of the Ivy League schools. Every kid has different strengths. Every kid has different abilities that we want to harvest. We want to nurture. We want them to experience more of. And there's tons of programs out there for artists, for musicians, for kids that are more analytic, kids that are more athletic. I mean, there's lots of different things that there's no one shape fits all, which is great, because there are programs and there'll always be something out there for every kid.